Welcome to the vault. Queen's going to try this one more time. I don't know what went on. It has been storming here in East Tennessee, but my Wi-Fi was on because I checked my phone. Everything was working just fine. So we're going to try this live stream one more time today. Thank you for joining me. Sorry about the mishap. I have the type of computer, if you accidentally touch anything on here, it takes you to Mars and back. Let's recap. This commentary is about the preliminary hearing, which is set for June 26, pertaining to Bryan Kohberger. He's being held without bond still in a Moscow County jail. A neighbor has decided to come forward to speak. They have not identified the neighbor, if it's a woman or a man. And I also want to discuss the 911 confusion. And I'm going to play commentary from Chief Fry and the captain. So I want you to listen very carefully to what the reporters ask, his commentary, feedback, response, also versus the captain's commentary of where the phone call derived from versus the rumor on social media that the kids called from inside of the house but then ran out. One fell out, one couldn't talk. Passerbyers came and spoke to a dispatcher. So I need to know how many calls were made to 911. Who made them? Which roommate's phone was used? And was the call made originally from the inside of the house or the outside of the house? Because this is where there is a problem. Thank you for joining me. Let's get started with News Nation. This will be another long live. Sorry about the last live. Kohberger preliminary hearing set for June. Thank you for joining me.
Just moments ago, Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger made his second court appearance since his extradition from Pennsylvania. I want to take you live now to Moscow, where Bryan Enton is standing by with what happened in this court hearing. Good morning, Bryan.
Good morning, Marnie. Yeah, it was a very, very quick court hearing. I would say just about 10 minutes or so. And we learned that they are going to have a preliminary hearing, which is a big deal, but it's not going to be until June 26th. So almost 6 months from now. So we are likely not going to learn much more about this case until June. The lawyer for Bryan Kohberger basically saying that they did want to have the hearing, but they needed time to go over all the details of the case. And the prosecution and the defense agreed that June would be a good time for that. They estimated that this preliminary hearing that starts in June will last anywhere from 3 to 5 days. And again, it's going to be significant, Marnie, because at the preliminary hearing, the way the law works here in Idaho, more evidence will come out and both sides will be able to question witnesses. So we may hear from people we haven't heard from before, like the surviving roommate who saw the killer walk by, according to police. Take a look at this video. I believe this is video. You know, this is actually not video from today. This is from last time, but I noticed Kohberger was wearing a different outfit. You see there, this is from the last hearing last week. He was in a different shirt today. He was in a T-shirt today. When he came in, Marnie, very quiet, like normal, didn't look back at anyone sitting in the audience, just sort of looked straight ahead, answered the judge's questions. And it was short, and things will sort of be at a standstill, at least for the public, until mid-June, Marnie.
Bryan, inside of the courtroom, were the families present this morning? What was the composition of the folks who were allowed in?
Yeah, the families were not there from what we could tell, because last time they were in the front row and we didn't see any family members this time. I'm told that Kaylee Gonzalez's family decided that they were going to watch this on Zoom. It was just too much for them to be here today. I mean, you can imagine how emotional it is, Marnie, because it's a small courtroom. So when they sit in the front row, they're very, very close to Kohberger, just a couple feet away, which is obviously extremely overwhelming to be that close to the man accused of killing your loved one. We're also told that the prosecutors have been in constant communication with the families. So basically they update them and let them know, look, this is going to be a significant hearing. We think you should be there, or this is going to be a short hearing, really just a scheduling hearing. And that was the case today. Very, very short. They just wanted to schedule this preliminary hearing. So the indication is the prosecution let the families know, like, hey, it might not be worth the hardship and the emotional toll of coming today. We'll just keep you posted with what happens.
Bryan, describe what Kohberger looked like, how he acted, Any characteristics that stood out to you about his appearance this morning, different than when we saw him the first time in the video people are seeing now?
Yeah, so this is actually now the video from today, Marty. And again, I can tell because of the T-shirt. I noticed that he was wearing a T-shirt today. So this is just from about a few minutes ago. So he looked forward the whole time. As you see, that's his public defender who did most of the talking. Didn't look back at all. Seemed a little fidgety when he first came in. But basically, it had the same sort of vibe that he did the last two other times that I saw him, the last time here in Idaho and the first time in Pennsylvania. His public defender did most of the talking, explained that she had already reached out to the prosecution and that they agreed on this June date. And then the judge basically had to question Kohberger and make sure that he was okay with waiving his right to a speedy preliminary hearing. Because the way the law works here in Idaho, you're supposed to have your preliminary hearing within 14 days of getting arrested. This is obviously going to be 6 months out. So the judge had to get on the record with Kohberger that he was okay with waiving his right to a speedy preliminary hearing.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, Bryan, but if and when this goes to trial, is there any discussion yet about a change of venue?
There is discussion, not officially in court at this point, but everybody's sort of talking about it in town because it seems like that could be a very real scenario that both sides could possibly agree on. I mean, this is a very, very small town. It's a college town. A lot of people knew the victims or were somehow connected to the victims. Almost everybody is connected to the university. So, experts that we've interviewed really on both sides, defense attorneys and prosecutors, have said it might not be a bad idea to move the trial to perhaps a place like Boise.
Another step in what will be a long process. Bryan, thank you for watching. Go to
News Nation is the source with Bryan Enton. Thank you, Mr. Enton, for your time and diligence in covering this case. And Miss Lady, thank you. June 26th, next preliminary hearing for Kohberger. Allegedly, he had scratches on his face, chin, whatever. Zoomed in, they found scratches on his face. Do not know if maybe perhaps his attorney wanted to have him nice and neat and shaven, or he requested to shave, or maybe he had a little nasty accident. My understanding is that he's not in population, so I doubt that he had a scuffle, but who's to say? Either way, change of venue, I hope not. He mentions Boise, Idaho. Who the hell wants to drive 5.5 hours lugging material, boxes, evidence up the highway? Because that means you'd have to have a storage truck, a U-Haul to carry all the evidence up, and then have a secure place to keep all of the evidence. I don't think there's a person in Idaho that has not heard about these kids. So I don't know where you're going to go in Idaho where no one has watched the news or social media pertaining to the quadruple homicide. Just have the trial right there, because he's going to hold this out, because right now he's playing Minecraft with his attorney and the court. He has nowhere to go. He has nothing but time on his hands, so he can play these mind games such as these other goofy-ass defendants, Lori Vallow, Daybell. They're all the same. They want 5 minutes of fame. Like I said early in the live, somebody will be reaching out to his parents and friends, or they'll be reaching out to Netflix and Dateline, and 48 hours is going to go on and on. You should know Dateline will do a story. A&E, 48 hours, Oxygen, Netflix, Hulu. Everybody's going to get a piece of this case just like any other true crime. It will be a spectacle. And God forbid what else will jump out of the clown car by the time June gets here. There'll probably be more people testifying and bringing forward information. Naturally, there's a gag order in this case. Nobody can talk. His apartment, search and seizure, sealed. There's many talks about what was actually in the apartment. Why was it sealed? Is it just a delay in paperwork? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. But he wants to play mind games. Because as I said, he has nowhere to go. He knows he killed those kids. I do believe he killed those kids. I don't know if there was a second party, co-conspirator, but I know he's the orchestrator. And his DNA is found on the sheet lying beside Maddie Mogen's body. How are you going to explain that? Turning the phone on and off. 2 hours later, your phone's on from the time you left your house. So one would say, well, you were up, obviously. Then your phone shows you moving around the state of Idaho at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, doing what exactly? And yes, you're entitled to go wherever the hell you want to go. You want to drive around the state of Idaho in the dark? That's your damn business. But your DNA is at the crime scene. And your phone miraculously turns back on 2 hours from the point of when you left your house. So hell yeah, circumstantial. You're talking about 2 different states and 2 different situations of phone pings and towers. Your lawyer is going to have to be very crafty in explaining all of that. And you're going to enjoy every moment of it because this is your crowning glory moment. Besides the deaths of the kids, plotting the deaths of the kids, sitting in here watching people fumble around with, packages and plastic containers and plastic bags and paper sacks with all your DNA stuff in it. And I think it's interesting that you have a blonde-haired lady sitting beside you. I don't believe you like women, so I think it's interesting that you weren't assigned a man. Because I think when you saw her walk in, you probably had a problem with her. What? They gave me this bitch as a public defender? A woman? Don't you all find that interesting? He sliced up some women, and now he has a woman attorney. I'll wait. I think he would have preferred a male attorney, but that's his luck of the draw. That he kills 3 women and a guy and gets a blonde-haired lady as his attorney. You can't tell me karma ain't a you-know-what. Son of a something. Yes, it is. I will bring you more information as I get it pertaining to this investigation. Any new developments, News Nation and Law and Crime Network are my 2 main sources of information. Let's go to the neighbor who has decided to speak. They have not identified the neighbor as a he or she or name. But allegedly, BK has spoken to the neighbor about the murders. I do not know if this information is true or not, but obviously somebody contacted this news agent to give their rendition of an alleged conversation. Thank you for joining me. CBS.com is the source. Welcome to the vault. And thank you for rejoining me. Had a little mishap earlier. Don't know what happened. A neighbor of Bryan Kohberger'S in Pullman, Washington, said the suspect in the murder of 4 University Idaho students spoke to him about the killings days after they occurred. Neighbor asked not to be identified. So it says, the suspect in the murder of the kids spoke to him about the killing. So I guess this is a he. He brought it up in the conversation. The neighbor exclusively told CBS News on Wednesday. He asked if I had heard about the murders, which I did, and then said, yeah, seems like they have no leads. Seems like it was a crime of passion, quote unquote. At the time of our conversation, it was only a few days after it happened, so there wasn't much details out, the neighbor added. The search warrant for Kohberger's apartment in Pullman, Washington has been temporarily sealed by an Idaho judge. The judge said the details could prematurely end the investigation and create a threat to public safety, quote unquote. Kohberger's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, the deaths of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xander Conoto, Ethan Chapin, who was stabbed at the women's off-campus rental home in Moscow, Idaho. Few details were released about the investigation into the murders until after Kohberger was arrested at his family's home in Pennsylvania in late December, more than a half month later, after the November 13th murders. An affidavit detailing how police tracked down the suspect was unsealed after he was extradited to Idaho. Naturally, he appeared in court today, which is Thursday. University of Idaho students are returning to class for the first time since Kohberger's arrest, which was yesterday, Wednesday, and many, like Madeline Pollock, are expressing relief, quote unquote. I was kind of glad to see a lot of cops around just in case something did happen. They would be there, she said, but it feels very relieving knowing he's behind bars. Lilia Luciano, award-winning journalist, is the author of this piece, correspondent based in Los Angeles. Thank you for joining me. Who is this neighbor? Is he telling the truth about what Kohberger said? Did Kohberger tell him it was a crime of passion? How can it be a crime of passion? Let's just say this was a real conversation between the two. If Kohberger did not know the victims, did not date the victims, never had a relationship, affair, entanglement, how could it be a crime of passion? Passion only lies if you've had some type of personal dealings with the victim and the suspect. So was he just throwing out innuendo because he's bored? Just wanted something to talk about. We also hear that in class, the subject came up. He never said a word. So why would he sit in class and not say anything? Professor's assistant, stoic, don't say anything. But here with this neighbor, allegedly, he says it was a crime of passion. Is that conversation true? And is it his attestment of what he did to these girls and guy? So what, you were passionate about whom, Mr. Kohberger? Maud, Dorothy, Dot. It's my new synonym for this thing. Kohberger reminds me of a big, big, tall girl. I said that. Oh, that's my assertion. Kohberger, are you feminine? I'm curious. Because I got a feeling you're going to eventually get a hold of an iPad in the jail, since they want to feed you a vegan diet or appetite, whet your appetite with a lot of vegetables, which you don't deserve, because other people may have preferences as well and use religious talk for the reason for needing what they need to eat. But Moscow has no business going out getting you anything extra to eat. If bologna and an apple is on the menu for lunch, that's what the fuck you should be eating. Or you don't eat. So I am wondering if Kohberger is feminine, has any type of homosexual tendencies, bisexuality. You know, the queen is very good at reading people. I do that well if I don't do anything else. Shut your mouth. Do we have us a bisexual mass murderer sitting in the Moscow jail? Will we find out? That's why he doesn't prefer women. He thinks he does. We're going to do a little Hannibal Lecter role play here. He thinks he does. Jamie Gunn thinks he likes women because that's what's expected of him. But could we have a slight homosexuality issue going on underneath this buff wannabe chest he's carrying around underneath his orange attire? What is the truth? What is his sexual identity? Because just because I talk about liking women or I want a family, kids, that doesn't really mean that's my true emotion. It means nothing. Words are cheap. Back that you know what up with some action. Perhaps he is in the closet. Some would say, well, Queen, what makes you think that? Because of what I just said. I'm a good reader. I do something most people don't do. I pay attention. I don't just sit up here and talk because I'm bored. I can do other things with my time. I'm a good watcher. I'm a good listener. And I watched him walk in that courtroom and something said, Angie, what's wrong with this picture? Him coming out of the courtroom, his facial expression, something was feminine to me. I could be wrong. It's just conversation. And oh my goodness, imagine mentioning that in the court when trial starts. I believe he would flip over the table. Somebody said, are you homosexual or bisexual? Bet you he flip his lid. And bet you the real Kohberger will immerse himself in court when they start depicting who he is and how he came to be a killer. See, let me tell you something. Everything's in the vocabulary. Pick the right words and the demon will appear. say the right thing in that courtroom, he will act out. Jaw still twitching. Looks like he's swaying a little bit forward and backward in his seat. He is pissed off that he is in there. Got a blonde-haired woman representing him, possibly incel woman hater, jealous, envy-hearted of happy people. He's pissed. How did I fuck this up? How did I go to that damn house in my car? How did I leave that girl standing in the doorway and another person on the bottom floor? How did I do that? Turning my phone on and off. They know everywhere I've been. Day before, morning of, later that day. They know I've been to the house 12 times since August, allegedly. They know too much because I was a fool to be hunting these kids thinking I could get away with this. But I got to play my part because I'm not going anywhere. They're not going to let me out of here. Mr. Kohberger is being held without bond bail in the Moscow County Jail. And I do not approve of anybody giving him a special menu because he's in jail for a reason. And you forfeit all your rights to the luxuries of what you like on the outside when you decide to snuff out people to land on the inside. That's a personal choice. And you all have no right to be feeding him no vegan repertoire food, nothing. Because he made his choice when he killed those kids. So whatever you serve in there, you decide to serve him beets with a slap of lettuce, he either eat or he don't. Bologna sandwich and a pear, he either eats or he doesn't. It's the bottom line. Is this conversation the truth between he and the neighbor that the crime was a crime of passion? We will see. CBS News is the source. I will be bringing you content later this evening pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell, her son, and Mr. Daybell. New information that she now says she has an alibi. She's trying to talk to her husband. I do believe she's going to put all the blame on him. That's why she wants to talk to her husband. The trial is to start here in a few months for Miss Vallow. I will bring you this information later on this evening. Welcome to The Vault. The third part of this commentary is the 911 confusion. I hate I even have to repeat this because I had to go on and on about it in the last live so people could understand what I'm saying. A rumor went to social media at the beginning of this story that the girls ran out of the house after seeing Ethan in a hallway. They called 911 from inside of the house and then ran out. People walked by trying to figure out what was going on. One roommate on the ground and one hysterical that couldn't understand what she's saying. So allegedly somebody took the phone and made the phone call using one of the roommates' phone. Now in the affidavit, you don't get that version. So I'm going to play you something from Court TV from Chief Fry and the captain, where you hear the phone call did derive out of the house by a survivor's cell phone, but it was of an unconscious person. So what is the truth to what the hell happened in that house, the hours of no communications to law enforcement, who discovered the bodies, which body did you discover, did two discover two in one room, what did you do after you discovered the bodies, did you call your friends first or 911 first, did you pass out in the house or outside of the house, who all was in the house at the time of the original 911 call, number one. who made the 911 call originally, from inside or outside, because you can't be in and out. And that's where the confusion is coming in. Because the rumor doesn't match the affidavit. And the press conference of the two officials speaking don't match nothing in the affidavit, because the affidavit don't speak of the 911 call, which I'll assume that's information that's redacted. Because how are you going to have a police report without hearing what happened when the person got up and found the bodies? So I want to know the truth about the 911 call. What happened when the roommates got up? Who found whom first, and what did you do after you found bodies in room 1, room 2? Did you call your friends first, or you called the police first? Did the friends come over first, and one of you passed out inside of the house, the other one couldn't speak, so a third party grabbed the phone to say, hey, somebody's passed out in here? Or did this take place outside of the house? And why would you be inside of a house with dead people calling your friends? Wouldn't you call 911 after seeing a person dead? And when you run out, who wants to stay in a house not knowing if the killer is still there? But if you lied, let's say she lied, DM, then she already knew the killer was gone. Because you didn't, one, lock the door back or call 911 at 4 a.m. in the morning. So what time did these people actually discover the dead kids? What did they do after discovering the dead bodies? Because there's nowhere in the affidavit that says Ethan was in a hall, bathroom. He was found in a room with his girlfriend. So why would somebody put that rumor out on behalf of the girls? Because that is the rumor you had to have told people. So this is what I want to know. What is the truth? Why would somebody lie and say he was in the hall when he was not? He was with his girlfriend in a room. Where was he in the room? In the bed, on the floor? Where was Xana? One would use deduction. She was on the floor because she bled out and the blood ran out to the outside of the house. So why would a stranger go to social media to pretend that they're speaking on behalf of these kids, but lie about where one person's body was found? And pictures of you running by yourself, Miss DM, shows me you're not too afraid of going outside. And in the era of social media hags and stalkers, seems like to me you'd be afraid to go outside unattended. Or did you deliberately go outside and run because you saw a social media truck outside, a news truck, people sitting in a car, van, SUV, and you wanted to be seen? I don't know, because I'm trying to figure out why people think we shouldn't be asking questions about stuff that's confusing. We have every right to ask questions. Only a fool wouldn't ask questions about information brought to the public. When you decide to speak to the public, you can't tell them how they can decipher the information. And we've learned that they spoke too soon pertaining to this being a targeted event. No threat to the community, which is a dumb comment. So long as anybody is free, they are a threat, whether there was a motive or not. Because as someone said, the motive is illogical. You don't just hack up some kids because you felt like it, or you liked one, or one didn't like you, or they fit into a box of people that wouldn't like you. It makes no sense. So who called 911 from where? Did they call the police first Because as I said, if you called the police, you would have said, hey, I found a body or two. They're in this room up here. We'll be waiting for you outside. You don't stay in a house with dead people. I don't give a damn if it's 2 degrees outside. Go sit in your car and let your engine run. And this will be heinous if we find out these kids called their friends first. And then when the friends got there, that's when everybody started falling out, couldn't talk, and somebody else took the phone, third party, and called 911 to say, hey, somebody just passed out. So that's why I need to understand how many calls were made to the dispatch from inside or outside. Who called the 911 dispatcher first? What did they exactly say? Did they say the person is on the ground because they just found a dead body? Because it would be stupid just to call and say, oh, my friend just passed out, without saying, and by the way, she passed out because she just found a dead kid, dead friends. And you can't have found one dead without finding the other. But I don't know. The commentary I'm about to play you with this woman's rendition of what happened to her back in the 90s, she's another goofy chick, in my opinion. And you will hear what she said when she walked in and found her friend, her and another roommate, how they reacted versus how the EMT reacted. And one's going to start to wonder, what are you people doing and thinking while you're at these crime scenes? And yes, we may seem judgmental, but we're human. And as I've told people, nobody should have to role play to make this make sense. As I said in the last live and the live before that, if I'm sitting here on a live stream and Pookie walks by me in this home, do you think I'm going to continue to stay on this live stream with you? I'll wait. You think I'm not going to ask this person, what are you doing in here? Because one, I live here. I'm not a visitor to where I feel like I shouldn't question why I'm looking at somebody walk across the kitchen floor, den, upstairs, downstairs. The behavior of that night makes me think that this girl act like she didn't even live inside of this house. So you have to ask, were the lights on, lights off when Kohberger walked towards her? Were her lights on or off? Has she been drunk, buzzed, under the influence of drugs, narcotics, weed, pills, methamphetamines? What? Why are you opening and closing the doors? If audio is being heard of somebody whimpering, dog barking, a thud 50 feet away at the neighbor's house, you had to have heard more while you were opening and closing doors, because that makes no sense for sound to be recorded of what's going on in the house that you are in. So possibly you heard more, saw more, and you turned a blind eye and stayed in your room, either awake or asleep, and did not tell the whole truth about what you saw. And possibly that's what this case is more about. Somebody saw something and did nothing, and waited till it was daylight savings time to play possum and then call. And this will be shameful to know somebody heard a commotion going on in 2 different rooms and never called the police. Because frankly, you were safer, yes, in your room locked and dialing 911. I don't care if you had to find something to push up to the door, I would have done that. I don't know him. I ain't locked the door back, so I'm pushing my damn bed up to this door, dresser, bookcase, something, and I'm dialing 911. Because to say that you froze means you felt something in that moment to freeze. Whether you knew he had killed somebody or not. Freezing means just that. I froze. So one would say, well, why would you freeze? Did you feel fear? Most would say, yeah, that's why I froze. So then why the fuck you didn't call 911? I don't care what anybody says. Something is off with this 911 shuffle. Make us understand. Why didn't you call 911 after you froze? What did you do when you locked your door for 7 hours? What did you see when you first woke up? You should have seen a bloodstained shoe at your door. That should have been ding, 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 bells before finding the dead people in their room. What made you go to their rooms? Yes, you would smell blood, as I've brought you testimony of what blood smells like, even from upstairs when a person shot themselves and I went to their house to help clean up the blood. I could smell the blood as soon as I walked in to the living room. And they shot themselves in an upstairs bedroom, my relative. So yes, you should have smelled blood when you opened your door that morning. Number two, you should have seen a bloody footprint at your door. Because that's in the affidavit. That's how they knew he left out. So we have to ask ourselves the obvious question. Was the footprint standing toward the door, toward the left, like he's coming down the stairs to go past the door, or it's pointing towards her, but sideways like it's getting ready to come and walk out? I don't understand. Make me understand. Did at any point while he was running through this house try to open the door of DM's room, but didn't get in because it was locked? Why not breach the door? You're already killing people. What's the big deal? Why preserve 2 lives versus 4? Who was the target? Because you can't say, well, I think the other ones were collateral damage, but you walk by a whole human and let them live. And now she will ID you allegedly in court. You hide, stay around for a month, clean your car when you go to Pennsylvania. So that means you didn't want to get caught. You also rode around Idaho after leaving Moscow, Idaho, which means you were possibly dumping clothes and the knife. So I'm going to say it again. Why would you leave a whole person to do all of this dumping of things, weapon, cleaning your car, walking out with gloves, to empty trash at 4 a.m. in the morning in Pennsylvania, neighbor's trash, mind you, but you leave a whole person as an eyewitness, plus one allegedly sleeping on the bottom floor? Welcome to the vault. Let's chop up Court TV's commentary of the 911 call. Thank you for joining me. We're going to go back a little ways.
The 911 call that was made 8 hours later.
On the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed to the Wicom Dispatch Center reporting an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence and was made from the phone of one of the surviving roommates.
This is the captain speaking. The phone call came from inside of the house of an unconscious person from a survivor's phone, not outside. So that contradicts the rumor that people saw them outside and called on their behalf to 911. The call has not been released. I'm going to say it again. He says the call came from inside of the house, from a roommate's phone of an unconscious person. So that means they made a phone call inside of the house originally to 911. But the rumor on social media was they called and ran out of the house. One passed out. One couldn't talk. People were passing by, intervened, and called 911 on their behalf. So that would make 2 phone calls. Then other people literally came over and started calling other people, frat people, blah, blah, blah. So how many calls total were made to 911? How many people are in the house when the call was made to 911 of an unconscious person? Who are those people? Whose phone was used? Who dialed the number? What was said to the dispatcher? Because if you're going to go to social media to defend 2 people, you better be very careful about what you're repeating. Because that would be their version, the roommate's version. Please listen to me carefully. The rumor was that Ethan was found in a hallway. They called 911 and ran out. One passed out outside and one couldn't talk. People walked up asking what was wrong, and then they called 911 of an unconscious person. But here you hear the law officials say the call came from inside of the house of an unconscious person via a survivor's phone. So what is the truth to the discovery of the bodies? Who discovered the bodies? Which room did you discover the bodies? What did you do after you discovered the bodies? Did you call 911 first, or you called your friends first? So let me say this. Who would sit in a fucking house with bloody people cut up to call their friends first if that's how it happened? Please help me understand. Because I don't know what happened in this house. You all are not listening. Please listen to what I'm saying. I am comparing rumor versus the affidavit and the chief and the captain's commentary in this court TV segment. The rumor is that one of the girls was unconscious, not the victims. The rumor is that they passed out outside, couldn't talk outside. But you hear the captain saying the call came from inside of somebody that passed out from a survivor's phone. So that's contradictory of the rumor that the people passed out outside. This is why everybody keeps questioning the 911 call, because nobody wants to verify what the fuck really happened with the phone call. It still don't make no sense, because if I go to social media, the news, to speak on behalf of you, I don't really know what happened in there. I'm only the mouthpiece, so I'm going to say it again. If you're using somebody to speak the truth of what you saw in the house and when you called 911, why is it different than what the chief is saying and it ain't mentioned in the affidavit? Exactly. You don't bring people to a crime scene. And why would I want to stay in the house after I just found my friend or friends dead? If I walk over to wherever the dead person is, I am hightailing it out of there, especially if it's a brutal scene. We're not talking about I walked in your room and you were just laying there and I'm pulling on you and you don't wake up. That's different. And at some point I say, wait a minute, maybe they're not breathing. So I get closer. And if I feel like you're cold, I'm calling 911. Checking for breath, checking a pulse. Now, if I see that you're bloody in there, I'm running the hell out of there. So why would a call come from the inside of the house of somebody passed out? You should be already outside. on the ground passed out. Let me say it again. You find a dead person, people, your ass should be outside for 1, your own safety. 2, contaminating the crime scene. 3, the killer's still in the house. So nobody can tell me how to think, because this makes no sense, even after the fact of finding the bodies, allegedly. And whoever went to social media to speak on behalf of the 2 girls, they got the version from them that Ethan was in the hall. How would I know Ethan is wherever in the room if I, 1, don't live there and I didn't see him dead? I didn't see the other people dead. You girls had to have given somebody that version. Why would you lie? Or is somebody just making that up to try to cover for the girls because they were friends with them? Because if you care about your reputation, you would have told the person that put the rumor out. You had no right to say that, because that's not what I said to you. I didn't tell you I found Ethan in the hall. See, that's where I have the problem. Why don't you debunk the rumor first? I'm not going to sit here and let people think I'm involved in a crime or miscommunications about a 911 call. I'm going to speak for myself, because I'm the one that has to walk around Moscow, Idaho, not you. And I wouldn't give a damn what the chief said and nobody else. I'm getting ready to clarify it directly. So I'm going to say this again. What happened when the girls got up? Who talked to whom first? What did she see when she opened her door? DM. She should have seen a bloody footprint at her door. That would let you know something is amiss in the house. Number 1. The smell of blood. Number 2. Or number 1. They both should be neck to neck. Smell of blood and see a bloody footprint at your feet. You walk through, you should be seeing a trail of blood coming down the stairs. Number 3. Trail of blood going towards the door where you saw the killer walk out. Number 4. Trail going into the living room, into Xana's room. So did you see these trails and then went and got Bethany? And then you 2 went and followed the trail and found Ethan and Xana in their room? Or you went upstairs first and found the 2 girls? Which is it? And then after you found either parties in the room, what did you do? Did you call your friends or you called 911? Because the captain says here in this commentary, somebody passed out and somebody used the survivor's phone and called 911. That does not sound like outside somebody passed out and called 911. So why would your friend or friends put a rumor out that you found Ethan in the hall, dialed 911, ran outside, passed out, one couldn't talk, strangers walked up and dialed the police for you? That is not what this captain is saying, and it's not in the affidavit either. And you will hear a reporter ask Chief Fry, were they witnesses? He says, I never said they were witnesses. But now we have an affidavit that says, yes, one was a witness to the killer being in the house and walking out, but not watching him kill the kids. Thank you for joining me. Make it make sense.
By the residence and was made from the phone of one of the surviving roommates.
All right, doesn't say.
We've read that.
They're using Kanye getting.
Sorry about that. Want to replay it? Comparing rumor versus the chief, captain's words versus the affidavit. What is the truth of the 911 call? Who made it? Who used the phone? How many witnesses were around when the first call came in? How many calls were made to the dispatch? What is the sequence of the phone call versus the friends coming over versus discovery of the bodies? Thank you for joining me.
We don't know why that call came in at noon. This was one of the first big shocking moments in uncovering some of the facts of what happened inside that home in Moscow, Idaho. There were 2 surviving roommates. Now, at that presser, the police chief didn't want to give out too much information, but it turns out one of the 2 did actually witness things, and one of the 2 did actually see the killer. Yet still, no call was made until noon the next day. Until noon, 8 hours later. Let me read for you from the affidavit. If you haven't heard this yet, sit down. DM. Those are the initials of one of the surviving roommates, Dylan, stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she said sounded like Gonzalez playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the 3rd floor. A short time later, Dylan said she heard who she thought was Gonzalez say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." Dylan stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Xana's room. Dylan then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Dylan stated she opened her door for the 3rd time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Dylan described the figure, 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan as she stood in, quote, frozen shock phase. Frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. Dylan locked herself in her room after seeing the male. Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. That led investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Take a listen now. Here's Captain Lanier talking about now the phone call, the 911 call that was made 8 hours later.
On the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed to the Wicom Dispatch Center reporting an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence and was made from the phone of one of the surviving roommates.
All right, it doesn't say who made the call, so we don't know who made the call, and it's an unconscious person. That was the second head scratcher that we all had, right? Who is that? Is that one of the victims? A bloody victim you're calling unconscious? Or could it potentially be someone who passed out? We don't know. We don't know. What we do know, though, is that description from the affidavit. We put together our rendition of what the floor plan is and what may have happened here. DM, that's Dylan's room. We know that we believe the killer was up on the 3rd floor, came down those stairs next to Dylan's room, and then went into Xana's room where she is with Ethan. That's where they were murdered. And then from the affidavit, Dylan describes opening up the door a little and then seeing those bushy eyes on this figure as he walked past her and then out the sliding doors. So why not call 911? What possibly could her state of mind be in an extremely traumatic moment like this at a young age like that? We have someone who experienced something very similar. Joining me now, Santa Monica, California, a woman who found her roommate after she'd been attacked in their sorority house back in 1992. She's been speaking out in support and in defense of this surviving roommate out in Idaho. Alana Zabel is with us. Alana, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad that we could speak with you. Could you describe briefly, take us back in time to your experience, and then I want your take on how someone might react, and tell us how you reacted. So can you explain that to us?
Sure. Yeah, my situation is scarily similar. 2 of my housemates were all in the same sorority, lived downstairs, so 3-level home. 4 of us lived on the 2nd level. My bedroom was a converted patio. It's an old Buffalo home. And then above us, there were some other students from the University of Buffalo, but they were not in our sorority. And that night, we all went out, and we went to multiple places, including a Sigma Chi party, which is eerie as well. We were hammered, and my housemate who was injured went home first, and she had the keys, so she was going to let us in. This is pre-cell phone where you can text someone. So I was the last to come home that night. 2 of the 4 of us on the 2nd level did not come home that night. When I arrived, I was ringing the doorbell, kicking the door, banging the door, screaming her name. She was not responding. So my friend who had dropped me off noticed that the bathroom door was open. So I said, hey, can you boost me up? And she, interlocks her fingers and heists me up through the bathroom the bathroom window. And I crawl through the window, not knowing that I'm wiping off fingerprints. And the screen is in the bathtub, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I put the screen back in the window. There's a weird smell, and some, it was in a disarray. But again, you live with 5 people. You just think somebody was messy that day. You don't think the worst. Then I went to her bedroom door. It was ajar, and I saw her foot in the down position. And I called her name, and she didn't respond. I heard some heavy breathing. So I just assumed maybe her boyfriend was over, and that was it. I went to my room at the front of the house, and I went to sleep. I started to go to sleep. About 15 minutes later, I heard someone step into my room. So I lifted up my head, and as I turned, there was no one there. But 10 seconds after that, the front door closed. Now we know that's when he left, because no one else came home until 9 o'clock the next morning. So he basically thought that my room might have been the exit, because he didn't know he'd come through the window. So I went to sleep. 9 o'clock the next morning, Carrie, one of my housemates, came home, and she came multiple times to my room saying, there's this really awful smell. It smells like vomit. Did you throw up last night? And I kept saying no, and dismissed her. And she came again because the neighbors upstairs needed us to move the car. So we had to go into the bedroom of our housemate who was attacked. And that's when we found her unconscious. Now, I saw no blood. When I went in there, and Carrie was trying to take her pulse, and I was shaking her feet and screaming her name, and there was liquid everywhere, and liquid caking her face, and disarray that I don't want to describe, but no blood. So I called 911, the paramedics arrived, and when the first paramedic walked into the bedroom, stepped foot, and I was right behind him, he stepped back in shock and said, holy, look at all of this blood. And as soon as he said it, and I'm looking into the room like that, the mattress is soaked, the walls are full of blood, the whole entire room was full of blood. And that's why in so many parts that I am defensive of how the mind works in a heightened state of fight or flight in a situation like this. That's one particular case. So then from there, basically we're flooded with investigators and detectives, and also my housemate went to the hospital, obviously, and she was in a coma for months. Thankfully, she survived. But there are so many similarities to this, and I am in complete defense of Dylan, because there's so much we just don't know. And these are trauma responses when someone freezes. We just finished 2 years of COVID. Seeing someone in a mask, you're not sure. I know it's probably...
I'm going to stop right there. I don't know what is going on. Listening to this testimony is just as dizzying as listening to this bullshit with DM and Bethany. And I don't mean any disrespect, but this is my opinion. How is it that you are in the room? This is your second time going near the room, in the room with a dead person, from late in the morning to the next time you all are going to retrieve a key. And nobody noticed blood on the victim or on the walls, sheets, bedding, whatever. But the EMT gets there and goes in the same identical room, and he steps back and sees blood. You just sat here in this commentary, lady, and said something was all over her face wet, but I don't really want to discuss what they look like. Yeah, because maybe it looked like blood and vomit. Your other roommate already asked you, did somebody throw up? And you said no. That's because she smelled it. She obviously smelled it near the room or going by the room. So you both are in this room now, but neither one of you noticed that she's bloody, beat up, shot, whatever. You call 911, and then he jumps up, kind of like DM in a frozen state, and lets you know, oh, it's blood everywhere. But yet you were just in there with your damn roommate hours later, and you want to compare your situation to what happened in Idaho, and you're in the room with the dead person. This is too much. So what are you trying to say? You were still drunk? And you couldn't tell that she was bloody? So let's ask this question. Did the girl have curtains up to her window? Were the curtains closed? Blinds? How is it you go in this same room, you don't notice a bloody person, but the EMT comes in and says, oh my gosh, there's blood everywhere? Okay.
2 years of COVID, seeing someone in a mask, you're not sure. I know it's probably a much different kind of a mask. It's a party house. I know personally, if there was a fraternity prank, sometimes we would kidnap, fraternity brothers, and they would kidnap one of us, like as pranks. You don't know if something like that is going on. And if you call the police and then you bust your friends and they get in trouble because you thought that it was something greater and more horrific. But so besides all the variables that I think that we have in defense of her, in that situation, you just don't want it to be the worst case scenario. You don't know it. It's not your reality. And because I believe she passed. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you jump in.
And she's my age. It looks old.
It's fascinating to hear this because as you're saying this, it's making sense because you have information about the crime, the attack on your roommate, yet you still went.
No, Vinny, this does not make any sense. This makes no sense. She was just in there checking on the girl, her and the other girl, to get a key out of there. So how's it if they don't see blood? And the EMT comes in and he jumps as soon as he gets in the room. This is ridiculous.
Sleep, not realizing what it was until looking back on it and not even seeing the blood that was everywhere.
Stop drinking.
I hope people are listening to you. I hope people are watching now because that's one thing I think a lot of us have been shocked by is the attack on this surviving roommate. Difficult enough to be in the position she's in, and we don't know a lot. And my guess is it's something similar to what you experienced, but eventually we will find out. Ilana, is there anything else you need to add? Go ahead.
Just one other thing, and even when you reread the affidavit and I was watching you, the words and the language are not alarming, right? It could go either way. When you say, it's okay, I'm here to help you, or there's someone here. These are phrases that are not alarming that would say, oh, something awful is happening, let me call 911, right?
Absolutely. Ilana.
Let me start at the beginning of this. This is somebody's personal testimony to something that happened in, I guess, 1991. She's near the same age as the Queen. She looks older than the Queen, and she sounds ridiculous to me because I'm not going with this flight freeze bullshit everybody wants to ride on. There comes a time when you need to heed a warning. Number one, you cannot get into your apartment house because you don't have a key. Foolish. You do not go anywhere without a key to your own house. Now, you're visiting somebody, that's different. They don't give you a key. But you're standing out in the dark, inebriated, which now you are fair game and fresh meat for a villain, trying to get in your own damn house. So somebody lifts you up and puts you up into a bathroom window where the screen is missing. So let's go here. Before you went out partying, did you not notice that the screen was on in its place before? Did you not take a shower? Stay woke. I'm a hard ass. That's just Queen. You did not notice when you took a shower, used the bathroom, peed, made a bowel movement, a screen in the shower. You want me to believe a girl goes out for the night and doesn't take a shower, put on makeup, urinates. That screen wasn't in that shower unless you never bathed for the night. Number one. Number two, you're climbing into a window with a missing screen that is now in the bathtub. That should be your indicator that something is wrong. You say, well, I live in a house with other people. They're messy. How do you equate messiness to a screen lying in the bathtub? But you're drunk. You want to get in. So you're oblivious to a screen off a window in the tub and go to your room. You thought somebody entered your room because you heard breathing in your room. Because he possibly was lost trying to get out of there, I guess. Luckily, he didn't rape you, beat you to death. Your friend wakes up the next day, another roommate. Oh, I forgot. You heard somebody go out of the room, out of the main door. So you know that somebody was in there because they went out the door. So you heard somebody in your room. You heard the door close. Hours later, you're awakened by another roommate who smells vomit, asks you about it. You say no, and you're trying to get a key to move a car. So obviously the car blocking the other neighbor's car is of the girl who's been hurt in the other room. So you all go in her room, still probably smelling vomit and blood, but yet you don't see any blood. You tell Vinnie Politan that you knew her face was wet, but you don't want to describe what it was, which was probably vomit. Probably vomit and blood. So one would say, if it was vomit, how would you miss the blood? Because you just told him, I don't want to discuss it. So that means you saw her face. You're trying to get a pulse. You're shaking her foot. You're doing anything to try to get her up, but yet you don't notice she has been bludgeoned. You call 911. So one was going to ask, did you exit out of the room when you called? Or she had a phone in her room and you used the phone? Did it ever occur to you to cut the light on in this room where you can't wake up your roommate? I'll wait. Were the lights on or off, dear? Because why am I going to keep trying to shake somebody in the dark? So was the room dark? Dark shades, dark blinds, dark curtains. EMT shows up. You're standing behind him, and he jumps. And he starts talking about, look at all this blood. But yet you were just in there with your roommate, and you didn't notice blood on the roommate, on the covers, on the wall. Once again, more bullshit. Because if I go into your room and suspect that you are sick and not breathing, I think I will cut the light on so I can look and see if your chest is going up, feel a pulse. That is the first normal thing to do in going into someone's room that is dark and you're trying to wake them up or look for a key or whatever. You turn on the light. And there's no way you're going to tell me if you turn on the lights, you could not see that she was bloody. She threw up on herself, urinated on herself, whatsoever. Blood is on covers, pillows, the wall. I'm done with this type of bullshit. Don't give me that flight shit because you done slept for hours while the perpetrator was in your room, first in her room, because you said you walked by her room and saw her foot hanging off downward. He'd already done beat her or whatever. He was the one you heard breathing. So then you go to your room, go to sleep, and then he enters your room trying to get out of the house allegedly. You look up, you don't see anything. you hear the door close. So for hours you slept in the house, drunk, inebriated, friend beat up in the other room. Somebody else comes in trying to get a key to move a car, smelling vomit. You don't know what she's talking about. Both of you go in the room, but yet neither one of you notice she's beaten to death, almost to death. EMT comes, he notices the blood. But you were just in there with another person trying to wake her up. And this is the story you want to feed Court TV. You knew something was wrong when you climbed through your bedroom, through the bathroom window, and the screen was off. You've never noticed the screen off before because when you talk to the roommates, hey, who took this screen off? Why is this screen missing? You should have smelled trouble when you climbed through the window and the screen was in the bathtub because that is how the fucking rapist got into the damn apartment. And then you want to feed this lame story to why you sympathize with DM, and yet you're in the room with the damn beat up person and don't even realize that they're bloody. Okay, I've had enough of this. I've had just about enough. All I'm going to say is this. I pray I am never in the company of anybody that behaves like this. Because if you can't use discernment when something is off and wrong and you visually see smoke, vomit, blood, urine, fecal matter, smell of death, I don't want you in my company. And I'm saying that. Because it's people like this that would get you killed anyway. Because they don't know how to react. And I get it. You can get scared. You don't know what to do in a situation where something jumps off. Do I fight? Do I run? Do I try to get away? Do I fight the attacker? But that's not the same type of situation. Because one's already been beat up and you didn't even know that the attacker was even in your room. He'd already done the do. But you should have seen the signs that something was wrong when you saw the screen in the bathtub. You're drunk. That's the problem. And you just wanted a way in your house. So you said, fuck this screen laying here. That was your sign somebody broke into your house. Why are you living in a place where, one, you don't even have a key to your own house? See, that was a mistake. One roommate's got the key to the house. Or you was with her, stayed behind and party, you couldn't get in. That was bad business right there. How did you get home? Did you walk from the bar? You got dropped off? You called a cab? What? Oh, your friend dropped you off. She sees you can't get in, so she helps you break in the apartment house through a fucking window where the screen's off. That's the way the perpetrator came in. The signs were there all along. Somebody broke into you all's house. This is why you have to pay attention to your house, your windows, your doors. And they tell you that. You want to see if you can break into your own house? Try getting in from the outside and see if you can make your way into your house. If you can jimmy your way into your house by doors, windows, garages, then a thief, robber, sadist can get in. And I may seem like a hardcore person, but I speak from the experiences of my life. This is why I have the disposition that I have. You have to know when something is wrong. You walk into a room, you should know your own smell of your house. To where you walk in your house, you would know somebody's been in here. I smell cigarette smoke, but I don't smoke. I smell marijuana. I don't smoke marijuana. I smell alcohol. I don't drink. I smell a musty odor, sweaty odor, but nobody's here but me. Your ass need to run like hell. You cannot be oblivious to your own surroundings. And that's what I'm thinking was the problem with these kids. They were not paying attention to their own element, their own house, letting all type of people run in and out, having parties with different people coming in and out. You were setting yourself up for this event. And it sounds cruel, but it is the truth. You cannot have strangers running in and out of your house because you don't know if they're casing the place, waiting to come back. Oh, I know they don't lock the door. I know they don't lock the glass slider. You took advantage. You let these people, you gave them the advantage, even if it had been somebody that knew them that killed them. And nobody deserved this. Let me make that clear. Nobody had the right to break in their house and kill them. But you cannot give the perpetrator a reason to breach your house. You see a screen laying on the ground, inquire about it. It needs fixing, call the landlord. The locks don't work from inside, call the landlord. You need a lock on the glass door, call the landlord. You smell something funny when you walk in the house, walk your ass back out. You see blood, walk your ass back out. Run like hell. You don't walk into danger. And I told people in my first streams pertaining to this story, this was a bad setup. 5, 6 people living in a house with different personalities, different friends. It was a recipe for disaster because you do not know people. You are trusting complete strangers in your personal space. Who's to say one of the girls wasn't coming out of the bathroom from a shower? Sitting on the toilet, door unlocked. Somebody just walks up, pushes the door open. Anybody listening? Somebody invites a guy over. He knows there's other girls sleeping in other rooms. Their doors ain't locked. And he decides to wander around while you're in the shower or sleep and decides to play funny games with one of your roommates. Decides he wants to take the cookie. I thought about that as a possibility. That one of the girls invited company over and the company went up in one of the other girls' room and killed the girls. That's why I never made an assumption of who the killer was and the motive, because I did not know the children. I did not know their friends. I did not know what they were into, how they lived, their disposition, their attitudes, their temperaments. But 6 people living in a house, 5, 6 is too many people for camaraderie. You're asking for trouble to have this many people living inside of a house. I don't care if it was a house full of relatives. It is a recipe for disaster because at some point somebody wants to invite somebody over. You may not be in the mood for company, music, traffic. Now, here comes a disagreement. Somebody decides to get crunk, get to talking crazy. You got to know your element. Let's finish this. Thank you for joining me. You're now listening to The Vault. Core TV is the source. Thank you all so much for your time.
Really, I mean, fortunately, your roommate survived. You're okay, and it turned out that way for you guys. But I think it's extremely valuable when we look at these cases to not jump to judgment so quickly, especially for someone who's been through an extremely traumatic situation. Alana, thanks so much.
She's going to have a lifetime of healing. Thanks for having me on, Vinny.
Thank you so much. Really important stuff. All right. When we come back, folks, Chanley Pager, still live in Moscow. She's got more for us. Don't go away.
All right, everybody. Brief intermission. Yes, you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to know the company you keep. You have to know everything about the people you hang with, ride with. Let them come to your house. You go to their house. This is how people end up in terrible situations because they're fooling with the wrong kind of people. Or their friends fool with the wrong kind of people. Many people have ended up, as I said, in dire situations because of their company, their company's company. Hello, Skylar. What's the truth to the 911 call? Who made the call out of the house? Because it's looking like a third party made the call inside of the house, which would lead me to believe these people called others to the house first, and somebody else called 911, which is ridiculous. Because you should have left your house. Hello, Chicago. You're talking to a Chicago native here. Welcome. You had no business calling anybody over to that house. If indeed you did, you should have ran like hell out of that house because you didn't know if the killer was still there or killers. So when you found those kids, that would be stupid to call somebody else over to the house. Whoever you found first dead, you should have ran out and then called 911 outside, and I would have been 100 yards from that fucking house calling 911. I ain't going back in there till the police come and tell me this house is safe for me to go back in. And it was never going to be safe because he made his way in there.
The life of Alec Murdaugh is bizarre. It is complicated. Disgraced South Carolina attorney discharged.
Hello, all my Chicago friends. Thanks for joining me. Southside girl here. Amen. Join me later for live number 2 pertaining to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, and information about her son sexually assaulting his estranged wife. Please join me later for live number 2. Thank you for joining me. Court TV is the source.
How are you feeling?
How you feeling, Bryan?
Are you ready to go to Idaho?
Why did you do it?
Last time to Pennsylvania, Bryan. Always one of my favorite parts of being a reporter out in the field is when that perp is brought in and you can scream things at him, ask him questions, try to get some sort of reaction. But there he was, the accused Idaho killer, just walking straight into the courtroom in Pennsylvania. Now is in Idaho, is expected back in court tomorrow. And Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, of course, is in Moscow tonight, will be in the courtroom tomorrow. What can we expect from tomorrow's hearing?
We're expecting it to be a brief hearing. It's a status hearing. And remember, it's at the request of his public defender, Ian Taylor, last week. When the judge asked about scheduling a preliminary hearing, she asked for more time. So we're expecting tomorrow for her to tell the judge whether or not he's going to invoke his right to this preliminary hearing or waive it. And as you know, Vinny, a preliminary hearing is a big date because that's when the prosecution is going to call witnesses, put on evidence. The defense can cross-examine those witnesses, give us maybe some more insight into the evidence they have, because they have to establish probable cause in front of this magistrate judge, who will then, if the judge agrees, balance it over into the district court here in the state of Idaho. If that does happen, then that's the time that Bryan Kohberger would be formally arraigned and enter a guilty or not guilty plea. Now, he also can show up tomorrow, and he is going to be there in person, probably shackled again in his jailhouse orange, and waive all of that.
Well, as you know, this was uploaded 17 hours ago. Kohberger attended court today, held without bond, and his next preliminary hearing is scheduled for June 26, 2022, 5 months from now. When I get more information pertaining to that hearing, naturally, I will bring you an update. Any other updates pertaining to this storyline, I will bring it to you. In this live stream, we discussed the preliminary hearing on the 26th of June. A neighbor has decided to speak out, saying that Kohberger talked about the crime and assumed it was a crime of passion. Do not know if this is an actual conversation or somebody trying to get 5 minutes of fame, because you have to be very careful with true crime, because people will say anything just to get attention. But the person did not identify himself, so obviously he doesn't want to be known. But he obviously contacted CBS or somebody from the news agent, just asked neighbors how they felt. You also have different people giving commentary, such as a lady who lived out in one of these towns in Idaho who felt like, wow, I didn't want us discovered. And the thought that Kohberger was out there where she lived doing God knows what on the 13th is scary. And I'm sure she's scared. And like the commentator said, who's to say that he wasn't right near her house? Because she said her dog started barking at an odd time of the morning. Now, could be anything. Could be a raccoon, possum ran by and the dog started barking. Or it could be Kohberger was out near her house discarding the weapon and clothes. Where is the weapon and where are his clothes? Did he keep his shoes? Does he have a co-conspirator that helped him, rode in the car, watched? Did he take trophies from the house? Who was the target? And naturally, it'll be hard to be filming yourself kill these kids while stabbing them. But as somebody said, he could have had on some type of strap-on device because he would want memories from this event. Warrant sealed from his apartment. What was found in his apartment? Pornography, explicit crime scene photos on his computer devices, manifesto, things written on the wall, bulletin board, a hit list. Who's to say? Because he's not wrapped tight. And there's no way I believe this is a crime of passion, because allegedly these kids didn't know him and did not date him. And in their devices, police would have found his telephone number and possible text messages to show that they had some type of dalliance between themselves and he. I pray he didn't film it either. But he's a wacko, he's a sicko, and whatever his reasons are for wanting to commit these crimes, he needs a trophy. There's no way he's going to plan this out, go to these people's houses, stalk them 12 times, and not take something out of there. They show you drives along the highway by creeks, rivers. The knife could be anywhere. He also could have hidden the knife, shallow dirt, put a marker there so he could remember to go back. Because that is the reason why he was driving around late, was to discard the weapon. As for the clothes, he could have foolishly tried to wash his clothes to get the blood out, because he is not smart. Anybody stupid enough to take their car to a crime scene would be stupid enough to keep their shoes, socks, and attempt to wash their clothes in a washing machine. Because he wore all black. He possibly would still want to keep that black outfit for the next time. He was free 1 month. Please check out my video on that. What was he doing in the month he was free? Cooling off period or plotting his next foray? You do not know people. And just like he will have people that will speak nice of him, badly of him, he will also have supporters. That is the way it goes. People will have supporters. He will also have sicko wacko fans to chase him around, try to visit, write letters, put money on his books. Because the world is filled with evil people who do not know how to stay in their lane. And that's why you will see people in chats defending him and saying he's innocent. We know that you're innocent and have to be proven guilty, but they have DNA linking him there. So why am I going to sit here and think he had nothing to do with these murders? Turning the phone on and off 2 hours later. Seen at this place 12 times. Video of, they believe, your car, gas station, and even in the daytime. What are you doing in this neighborhood if you don't know anybody? And yes, you're entitled to roam the earth, drive wherever you want, daytime, nighttime. As I tell people, I do my best thinking at night, but I'm not riding around at night. I can do that and hear my thinking. It's a wonder he didn't get stranded out there trying to find a place to discard his weapon. But what does he care? He's trying to preserve himself. No regard for the life he stole, lives he stole, stolen. He's a narcissist, psychopath. He has no empathy. He doesn't care for himself. So why would he care for 4 innocent people? He left 2 behind. Why? Because the fact that he's discarding items, the weapon, cleaning his car a month later, emptying trash with surgical gloves on in Pennsylvania, that is contradictory to leaving a survivor, eyewitness. Why would you leave somebody behind, but then vigorously try to get rid of evidentiary material and clean your car in an entirely different state and empty trash in your neighbor's Benz at 3, 4 in the morning? He's a night owl. He's a lurker. He's possibly been doing this type of behavior even in Pennsylvania. If he didn't assault anyone in Pennsylvania or kill anybody there, he was out lurking and looking in windows and doorways. Because you don't wake up and start sitting outside of people's houses in the day and night at 28 years of age. He's been doing this because you have to have a start, a jump off. He was possibly doing this teenage years or early 20s, peeping and lurking. Will we get information that he's been peeping and lurking around in different people's homes in Washington, Idaho, and back in Pennsylvania, and even while in college? Has he had sexual relations with a woman? Is he a virgin? Is he also gay, bisexual? How does his family feel now about him being locked up? Will they try to come visit him? Will we find out that the father was in town at the time of the murders? Why did he fly across the country to drive back with his son during winter months? Really not the best time for sightseeing when the land is cold and dry. No leaves, no foliage. To each its own. Did they know that their son was homicidal, sick, wacko? Did they treat him well growing up? He speaks highly of his father, but what is the real relationship between Kohberger and his parents and his siblings? Did they favor their other children over him? Both sisters are in the counseling psychology department for work. Is this the reason why he also went into criminology and psychology in competition with his sisters? Did the family show the girls more attention? Who is Bryan Christopher Kohberger? Has he committed any other atrocious crimes against persons in the state of Pennsylvania or any other state? Was he going to commit more murders after the Idaho 4? What is the nexus between he and the victims? Did he meet any of them? Talk to any of them? Did he have help planning this crime? Did he solicit help from an underground person in this crime? What is found in his apartment? Is there DNA of the victims in his car, in his apartment? Manifesto, hit list. Did he confess to somebody or on a website pretending to be somebody else? And what is the truth to the 911 call? Did these girls call other people over to the apartment before calling 911? And if you did that, why would you do that instead of calling 911? Will DM be a good witness on the witness stand or break down? How would she be able to prove Kohberger was who she saw in a mask walking towards her? Will the 12 members of the jury believe her? What other evidence do they have against Kohberger? Blood, semen, sweat, blood mixture, his blood with theirs, blood inside of the car, foot pedals, seat, back of the seat. Because you leave DNA everywhere you go, whether you were in a crime scene or not. You shed hair. You drop eyelashes. You slough off skin. You perspire. And he was sloppy. He was very sloppy. Because one, he went to the scene 12 times in his own car with his phone on. Turning the phone on and off before and after the crime. Leaving his DNA on the button of the sheath snap. Where did he purchase the weapon? When did he purchase the weapon? August, September, October, November, or he already had it when he moved to Washington State? Did he buy the knife specifically to kill these kids with? Will somebody speak up pertaining to selling him the knife? Will they find an order for the knife through Amazon or any type of company online? Purchases from his bank account, debit card, credit card, cash, check. What was his plan after November 13th? I believe he would have killed more people, but I think he sat still once the bolo went out on the Hyundai. The fact that he never turned himself into the police shows you guilt, because you know he heard of the killings and he was just biding his time. When he touched down in Pennsylvania, he knew that law officials were on his tail. The reason why he cleaned his car from top to bottom through surveillance and emptied trash into neighbors' bins, because he knew FBI had him. And if he was smart, he would have known they would get his DNA by any means necessary. And they did. Book smart, but dumb as a bag of rocks. Praying for a swift trial. Praying for the death penalty. He deserves it, because he had no right to kill those kids. And I know that everybody reacts differently during certain circumstances, crime, dire situations. But you have to use your head when you are confronted with a serious situation such as this, and being in a house with other members and something does not appear right. You have to think. Because it's not just about you, it's also about the others in your house. So it wouldn't matter if there were roommates, your family, or your children, or your guests. You have to think of everyone involved. And I find it odd that a person would open a door 3 times, looking out, hearing noises, whimpering, crying, dogs barking, and never once think to text the people in the house to inquire about any of the noises, and seeing a stranger walk by them in a mask. That is bizarre to me. Because if you froze, you are sending a message that something made you feel this way at that time. An instinct should have kicked in that something is not right with this person. I don't know him. He wasn't here when I got here. I didn't hear anybody bring him in. I didn't see him come in. He's not supposed to be here. Let me text these other girls or call them and see if they respond. No response. I'm calling the police. You cannot worry about getting people in trouble, the snitch rule, because in the end, 4 children lied dead in a house, and we do not know if any could have been spared, saved. And the fact that this girl is out running shows me she doesn't have much fear 2 months later to run outside in the cold in shorts. Even though the killer had been apprehended, you still have to worry about crazy fans of a killer, crazy people on the internet trying to stalk you and find you and ask you questions. I still would be leery coming out by myself. I would also be leery sleeping in a house or an apartment, whether there are other people there. Because remember, she lived in a house with other people who were murdered. So I still would feel weird even in a house with my own damn family. Because at some point, lights have to be cut off. People have to go to sleep. And I think it would be hard for a person who allegedly feared for their safety would be able to sleep soundly anywhere. Did she return to school? Did Bethany return to school? What are their plans from here on out? Will these two reconnect and room together somewhere? How do they feel about all the hype on social media and the news? Does BM have any regrets for not calling 911? And we ask these questions because, one, we are human and we dissect something is off. And as I said, it may be nothing, but it sounds off. Because in the end, this is her account of what she experienced that night. And it has now become public record. So we have every right to ask and inquire about the information. And exactly, no one cared about the Jacks, the Jeremys, the neighbors who spoke. Some of you doused them with gasoline, assuming they were the killer. You changed the narrative every week according to whoever was immersed in the story, whoever immersed themselves. So as someone has said, why you can't question Bethany and Dylan, but you can throw daggers at frat boys, boyfriends and ex-boyfriends as the perpetrator. How was that right? It wasn't. It's not right to accuse anyone without proof. But being in the house with the perpetrator, seeing him, is totally different than assuming an ex killed the kids. Because what we thought was untrue. Somebody was on the first floor, somebody was on the second floor sleeping allegedly. And somebody on the second saw the killer leave. Did not lock the door back, but locked their own bedroom door allegedly. What did she do after locking her bedroom door? Did she fall asleep? Did she call someone? Did she text someone? Did she listen to music, watch TV, cry herself to sleep, put a pillow over her head? What did she do in the hours before calling 911 at 11:59 or so? Because it will be very disturbing to find out these kids did not call 911 when they got up and found these bodies. And instead, they called their friends. And people would say, what would possess you to call your friends when finding your other friends bludgeoned to death? How are these people going to help you with your dead friends lying around for hours? You need to call the police and then call your friends. Sadly, these children were not saved. Don't know if they could have been saved. But the right thing to do was to call 911 when you saw that guy walk by. You had to have known he did not belong there, and he was not a friend of yours or the other roommates. And something made you freeze Dylan. So your instinct should have kicked in that he's the reason for the noises, the thumps, the whimpering, the crying. He's the reason. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $McGanty129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Please join me later tonight for a deep dive into the Lori Vallow Daybell case. Mr. Daybell, please check out her son's rendition on Netflix, The Sins of Our Mother. We'll also chop up the allegations against him of sexual assault against his estranged wife. The charges were dropped. Is this boy sick? Is he wayward like his mother? Have we been hoodwinked and bamboozled by this guy who's been on TV and interviews and YouTube channels? And why are they prolonging the inevitable, knowing they killed those kids, conspired to get rid of those kids, killed husbands and wives together with the aid of the brother? Why not just admit you killed all these people and save the family members the grief of going to trial? How did the children die? What was the method of their deaths? Lori knew what she was doing. Chad knew what he was doing. I believe they wanted an easy way out of their relationships. So they killed husbands and wives and children to be together. And it had nothing to do with 144,000 chosen ones, because God would never tell you to murder your neighbor or your family member. That was Satan talking. You have been listening to The Vault. Thank you.